A newborn foal, still wet from birth, wobbles onto its long legs within an hour, and by the end of its first day, it can run. A baby wildebeest can keep up with the thundering herd within minutes of being born, because if it can't, it dies. Across the animal kingdom, this is the rule. Life gives young creatures almost no time to be helpless. And then there is you. A human baby, a full year after birth, still cannot walk reliably, cannot feed itself, cannot survive alone for even a single day. And it will stay dependent, cared for, and protected for well over a decade more. Of every animal on Earth, you had the longest, slowest, most helpless childhood of them all. And that strange, costly, drawn-out childhood may be one of the deepest secrets of what made you human. Look at how extreme this really is. Compare yourself to your closest living relatives. A chimpanzee is weaned and riding on its mother's back through the trees within a few years, is largely independent by the age of 7 or 8, and is having offspring of its own by around 13. A human being at 13 is, in most times and places, still very much a child, years away from being able to fend fully for themselves. We take more than a decade and a half to reach maturity, and in that time we pass through life stages that seem to be uniquely ours, a long childhood after weaning, and then that turbulent, transformative stage we call adolescence, complete with a growth spurt that other apes simply don't have. No other creature stretches out the beginning of life quite like we do. And here is why that's such a puzzle. In the ruthless logic of evolution, a long childhood looks like a terrible idea. Every extra year of helplessness is another year a child can be lost to hunger, predators, or accident. Every year of dependence is an enormous drain on parents, who must feed and protect a creature that gives nothing back for a very long time. And crucially, a long childhood delays reproduction, and delaying reproduction is one of the costliest things an animal can do. So evolution should, in theory, push hard toward growing up fast. Instead, in our lineage, it did the exact opposite. It slowed childhood down and stretched it out longer than in any other animal. Something about that long, slow childhood had to be worth all of that cost. And the leading answer sits right behind your eyes. The brain. Your brain is extraordinarily large and almost unimaginably complex, and it does not arrive finished. A newborn's brain is only about a quarter of its adult size, and it keeps growing and, more importantly, wiring itself for years, with some regions not fully maturing until your mid-20s. Building a brain like that takes time, and it takes a staggering amount of energy. In a striking study, the anthropologist Christopher Kuzawa and his colleagues measured how much fuel a child's brain consumes and found that at around the age of 4 or 5, the brain can burn nearly half, or even more, of the body's entire energy budget. Think about what that means. So much energy is being poured into building the brain that there is little left over to grow the body, which may be exactly why children grow so slowly through those years. Your body was growing quietly and patiently precisely so that your brain could grow spectacularly. A long childhood, in this view, is the time your remarkable brain needs to be built. But a big brain is only half the story, because a brain is useless if it's empty, and that points to the second great reason for our long childhood: learning. More than almost any other animal, humans survive not on instinct but on knowledge that has to be learned. Language, tools, how to find and prepare food, the intricate rules of social life, the accumulated wisdom of your entire culture, none of it comes built in. All of it must be absorbed, and that takes years of watching, copying, practicing, and playing. The biological anthropologist Barry Bogan has argued that human childhood and adolescence are special, evolved life stages, in part because they give us a long, protected window to learn everything we need before the full responsibilities of adulthood arrive. Childhood is a kind of apprenticeship for being human. All that time you spent playing as a child was not wasted time. It was your brain rehearsing the skills of a lifetime, Which raises one more question. If human children are so helpless for so long and so expensive to raise, how on earth did our ancestors ever afford it? A chimpanzee mother raises her young mostly alone, and so she spaces her births about 5 years apart. But human mothers often have children much closer together, several dependent youngsters at once, each needing years of care. The answer is that human mothers were never meant to do it alone. Our long childhoods were made possible by help. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has shown how human children are raised cooperatively by a whole network of caregivers, fathers, older siblings, aunts, and others, what researchers call alloparents. And grandmothers may have played an especially powerful role. The grandmother hypothesis, developed by Kristen Hawkes and others, proposes that older women, no longer having children of their own, could devote themselves to gathering food and caring for their grandchildren, allowing mothers to have more babies while long childhoods were still supported. In other words, it truly did take a village. We could afford our long, costly childhoods only because we raised them together. And here is the beautiful thing. These explanations aren't rivals so much as partners, woven into a single spiral. A big brain needs a long time to grow and to fill with learning. A long time to learn requires a protected, dependent childhood. A dependent childhood is only affordable if the whole group pitches in to help. And a group bound together by cooperation and shared care creates exactly the rich social world that makes a big, learning brain so valuable in the first place. Each piece feeds the next, and around it goes. Our ancestors slowly becoming brainier, more dependent, more cooperative, and more human, all at once. Now, in fairness, the details are still being worked out, and scientists don't agree on everything. It's genuinely hard to know which pressure came first or which mattered most, the brain, the learning, or the help of others. And by studying the growth lines preserved in fossil teeth, like the annual layers in a tree, researchers such as Tanya Smith and Christopher Dean have traced how the pace of childhood changed over our evolution, finding that the very slow, drawn-out schedule you experienced seems to have emerged relatively late in the human story. The full picture of how and why our childhood stretched out so far is still coming into focus. But the broad truth is remarkable enough. There are smaller wonders tucked inside it too. That awkward adolescent growth spurt, when a teenager can shoot up in height in a single year, appears to be uniquely human among the apes. The very last part of your brain to finish maturing, the region behind your forehead that governs judgment and self-control, isn't fully wired until your mid-20s, meaning your childhood, in a biological sense, lingers far longer than most people realize. And the deep human bonds of family and community, the reason you were cared for so patiently for so long, may themselves be a direct consequence of just how much care a human child demands. So the strange, wonderful truth is this: your long childhood was not a flaw or an accident. It was the price of admission for everything that makes us human. A brain large enough to build language and culture, a mind shaped by years of learning and play, and a life woven from the very beginning into a web of others who cared for you. You were helpless for so long because you were becoming something that takes a very long time to build. So the next time you see a newborn foal stagger to its feet and run within hours of being born, while a human child takes years just to stand on its own, remember what that slowness really means. Not weakness, but investment. Not a delay, but a gift. The long, protected, irreplaceable time it takes to grow a human mind. Such a slow and helpless way to begin a life. And such an extraordinary one,